Okay, attempt number 4 at making what's apparently the most complicated bunch of bump to flesh out about the current shit going on inside Bitcoin. I think what I don't like is seeing a bunch of naive appeals to some trope that don't reflect reality at all. So you have Bruce come out and say, Bitcoin Core is fucked because there's a bunch of people with pronouns walking around. It's infested with woke ideology. Therefore, it's shit. This is really facile and childish to dismiss the work people are doing based purely on politics or, on a heuristic of just, modern woke brain rot, as though that disqualifies a person from being able to do anything else. It might even be the opposite of that. It might be that you need to be that sheltered from reality to the point where you could actually fall for woke ideology and believe the kind of modern stuff they're saying about gender. And that is just the price you pay for having hyper-focused on computer science for your entire life, and you're still a young adult and you haven't really been slapped in the face by reality yet. That said, the reaction was much more worrying. The reaction was everyone saying, shouldn't matter about the politics. All that matters is the code. And thank you for writing all this code. You're legends. I've seen so many people say this today, and it's become this sort of virtue signal of nothing matters. Anyone can develop. Isn't freedom wonderful? Anyone can come along and contribute to this project. What the fuck are you guys on? The space is unbelievably political. There are silos all over the place. Funding gets dictated according to who goes to the right event at the right place, who shakes the right hand. People get excluded from this all the time for reasons that have nothing to do with technical merit. The space is riddled with politics, and there is a very obvious flavor to the politics that has taken over Bitcoin Core. And anyone spouting this trope around the only thing that matters is the code that's written, I bet you doesn't even know how to read C++. And if they do, they've never actually bothered reading the code. And if they have bothered reading the code, they haven't managed to reason about all the implications of everything it does. We already have evidence of these people having written malicious stuff and trying to hide it in context that other people won't catch it. So I don't care what code you write, as much. I don't exclusively care about what code you write. So here's me, mechanic, talking from my lofty position as a D-list celebrity inside the Bitcoin space, with a small but relatively high signal following, telling you I'm still to this day not a developer. I still don't know how to read C++, and even if I did, reasoning about it requires long, complicated conversations with tiny cliques within Bitcoin that I trust to actually figure out the motivations behind it and the implications. And all that within a context of where I hope that if there are unintended consequences for any code, that we actually might have a shot at fixing them. All of that is reality. And turning around and mirroring that with, it doesn't matter. If you can come along and say, hey, I want to kill all Norwegian people, or I think Russians should be nuked or something. Oh, wait, that is actually what one of them said. If you're of that opinion and you come in and you write a line of code, I'm not just going to blindly turn a blind eye to all of that and go, the code looks good though. That's not how anyone is actually reviewing this stuff, because people aren't actually that. The world does not work that way, and everyone knows it. If someone comes up to me on the street and they're obviously a schizophrenic and they tell me something happened, I'm probably not going to believe it. But Terry Davis was a schizophrenic and was the best programmer ever lived, basically. So I'm saying these aren't 100% reliable heuristics, but no one's ever going to not use them. So if you've got a bunch of pronouns and Ukraine fucking flags in your bio, I'm going to think this person obviously is very gullible and potentially just stupid as well. Does that mean you're not incredibly talented and gifted in another area? No. So let me just hold space for that being okay for a while. So that's where my disagreement with Bruce comes in, who's starting to throw shade at everything. The thing he's pissed off about is the fact that primarily they were on the wrong side of a technical debate, and then they got butthurt about everything else and just started looking at things entirely through the lens of politics and social, judging people by their allegiances and silos and all that stuff. And yeah, I can admit to some extent that it's sad what the big blockers went through and how they wrote themselves out of the script, and they must have felt censored because you couldn't talk about big blocks on r/Bitcoin anymore or Bitcoin Talk. But you could still talk about it on r/BTC, and they also owned Bitcoin.com. So I find it hard to feel too much sympathy there for these people, but I'll, by way of some sort of confession on my part, I have dismissed the way they must have felt more than, maybe too easily. So I'll backtrack on that and I'll apologize for it. But I will say that if I was in their position and I thought Core has been overtaken by a bunch of idealistic nut jobs, maybe they're all spooks, maybe they want the project in the toilet, maybe this is exactly what a government psyop would look like inside the Bitcoin space, I would still wait for some evidence of that. And them pushing SegWit was not evidence of that. SegWit was good, and I stand by that being good. I think there are problems with it, but I don't think those were intentional. So maybe I'm naive now, but I don't think so. Currently, I'm in basically the same position as Bruce. I think Core has been infested with a bunch of woke idiots or possibly malevolent bad actors but I think we have a manifestation of that now. So having written this, hiding within an unrelated pull request code that changes the description of what data carrier size does to say it only pertains to data contained within raw script pub keys. That's never what it said. That's never what it was there for. Luke's the one that wrote it, and he will confirm that. Data carrier size is a variable that exists inside Bitcoin to control how much data can be carried. The clue is in the name. So to say it's actually just about how much data is carried within op return. And by the way, we've backdoored in a way for you to put data in. This is what I call the hole in the living room, when you've had a very long conversation about how large the cat flap was on your front door, and they bashed in the sidewall of your house, and now any animal of any size can get in. I'm saying this was like, they've basically changed, rather than, there was a variable that was called how big can an animal be that can get in my house. Now they've made a massive hole in the wall and said, right, we've changed that variable or the documentation around what it does to say how big can the cat flap be. And we all know this is a farce, because no one cares how big the cat flap is in an environment where you have a hole in your living room wall. This was disingenuous and it was cynical, and it's the fact that you can believe that without any shadow of a doubt is because it was included in a pull request that had nothing to do with data carrier size. This was a totally unrelated thing, so it got snuck in there inside a documentation change in order to backwards rationalize the existence of a bug, whether it was intentional or not. But we know it's intentionally being kept there. And the people it's being kept there by are people who I'm now completely disillusioned with and dislike exactly the same way Bruce does, even though I haven't come to it for the same reason he has. I believe he's corroborated his heuristic of distrusting people that come from this woke ideology with bullshit rationalizations because he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. I believe I actually have a genuine rationalization from it, and it's a different team now, by the way. Core is very different to what it was back in the block size wars. So I'm looking at this, and I'm saying I feel like, yes, we've been infested with woke disease, and people are just sitting there saying it doesn't matter. If you write good code, it gets in Bitcoin. If you don't, it won't. Everything is great. Bitcoin is for enemies. La la la. Just these empty fucking copy phrases we use. Don't worry, if one mining pool gets too big, all the miners will just move to another mine. Like, all of these fucking lazy copy phrases we use drive me insane because none of them are accurate. None of them actually look at the reality of, well, none of those things are happening. We have people writing malicious code getting into core, and it's not making any difference to anything. And we have total centralization of mining, and miners aren't moving to smaller pools. So, or even if they are, those smaller pools are just secretly big pools. And whenever you tell people that, they go, it doesn't matter. So these coping mechanisms we have, or these, refutations to people that are coming to us and saying Bitcoin has problems, are not good enough because they don't hold up to reality. So when it comes to what's happening here, I'm finding it infuriating because I know plenty of people that have been just absolutely written out of the script, and they've been fantastic contributors to Bitcoin. Obviously, Luke is the prime example of that. You can't come up with a better example of someone who's been sidelined and marginalized for bullshit political reasons. It's just that when the politics is weird conservative Catholicism that seems, totally out of sorts with modern day ideologies, it's fine to dismiss all that. That guy, we don't like him. And it's just so plain to see. Like, they're very open about it. So the main funding that comes for Bitcoin developers comes from Brink and from Spiral. And Luke has always been denied any funding whatsoever from these organizations, despite basically being the most prolific contributor to Bitcoin ever, as well as having single-handedly saved the network from the accidental fork in 2013, plus being the only reason we have SegWit, and thus the only reason we have Lightning. In multiple instances, this guy is not only just day-to-day plugging away doing janitorial work and writing good code, but also just being the right head for the emergency scenario that says, we need to fix this, and coming up with a pragmatic solution that just says, we need to do this now, even if it pisses off a bunch of ideologues. They don't know what they're talking about. The idea that you would just deny that guy over and over again is one thing. But then, to go further than that, the guy that makes the choices around who gets funded, David Harding, comes out and writes this where is it? I pulled it up here because I knew I was going to get into this. Eric Lombroso tweeted, most people in Bitcoin owe more to Luke than they can possibly imagine. Yes, even when he does crazy shit. David Harding, this is the guy that's always denied Luke and who's made the decision, I believe unilaterally, to never give him a penny despite all this contribution, said, I disagree. Luke has cost valuable Bitcoin contributors more than most other people can imagine. He manufactures controversies over inanities, abuses his authority, and tells half-truths that take time and expertise to refute. I think he's been a net negative for Bitcoin. I wish I had previously said more publicly about the problems Luke causes for other contributors. Maybe then the millions he has recently received would have gone instead to the quiet, undramatic builders that really help move Bitcoin forward. I'm sorry. So, you have the most prolific dev out there who has single-handedly saved the network 3 times, at least by my count. You've denied him any funding whatsoever. He's identified a problem in mining that has become incredibly centralized, made a business to help fix it, raised money for that business, and you think that shouldn't have been allowed either. You wanted that money to go to you, so you could not have let him get anywhere near it. This is authoritarian, narcissistic psychopathy like I have never ever seen. And this is the guy that's deciding where the money goes and who's in favor and who is out of favor. And again, none of this is based on technical competence at all. It's all personal and it's all political. So when we kid ourselves and we're like, I don't care who writes what. This guy, that was good code. That wasn't. Oh, I don't even know that one was written by A. Chow and that one was by Luke. That's not how any of this fucking works, because that's not how people operate, is it? So just pretending that you can abandon social heuristics and just ignore red flags is bullshit, because they're not prepared to do it on that side. So why should we do it on this side? If there's a bunch of woke devs that are doing stupid shit, why am I supposed to be the magnanimous, naive one that says it doesn't matter, only the code matters, when I know the people that are writing it are trying to sneak malicious changes into it? I'm sorry, that is a watertight point, and it drives me crazy watching people just be that naive about it. So Luke also, like, obviously I'm friends with Luke, and I was talking about this with another friend in the space, and he's like, "Oh, you're very protective of Luke." And I'm like, "Yeah, you know what I am, because I feel a massive personal debt to the dude. I do." And does that make me have less ability to be objective about the things he does? Maybe. I hope not, but I'll be the first to admit it if I'm making if I've got some rose tinted glasses here and I'm being naive. As far as I'm concerned, Luke's done more than enough things for Bitcoin that just no one else was prepared to do, that were utterly necessary, that I think it speaks for itself. I really do. And yeah, obviously it's a privilege to work with the dude. But just so I can convince myself I'm not, deceiving myself in my analysis here, he's not the only person that's been muscled out of core and been just told, yeah, we know you're a good guy and we know you've contributed loads, but fuck off. We don't like you. I've seen this happen to other people in the space, and it's fucking awful, and it's all based on politics. And there's this tiny little woke clique running around at the moment. Everyone's got pronouns and rainbows in the bios, and it's a bunch of the exact kind of people that infested Rust and infested the Tor project and infested Firefox and every fucking, like, half decent modern open source project that holds the modern internet together is infested with these fucking guys. And it's really annoying to deal with. And the minute it comes in, you know that the project is going to go down a shitty path pretty quick. But you wait until it manifests that way. And it has in Bitcoin Core, is the point. It hadn't before. And so Bruce was wrong to come out. Almost broke Chatham House rules there. Sorry. There are some things I can't get into. But yes, I basically think what's going on inside core development, which is what people sort of Bitcoin Core is Bitcoin for all intents and purposes, and that's okay as long as Bitcoin is not as long as core is not corrupt and broken. But as far as I can tell, it is, and now it's just a case of boiling frog syndrome, just like with mining centralization. Like, we don't have a meritocracy in Bitcoin Core. That's the fundamental argument I'm making here. So when people say, hey, I don't care if you're Adolf Hitler, if you wrote good code, it's going in Bitcoin. Bullshit. That's not how it works. If no one likes you, your code's not getting in. If people do like you, they're going to look more favorably on it and you have a much better chance. It's all politics. Even the people that are in the center of it admit that. So, it's funny, when people are on the inside, it doesn't matter. When people are on the outside, it does matter suddenly. Jeremy Rubin's a good example with CTV, right? Everyone said, the entire CTV camp is saying, oh, if Peter Wooler had proposed CTV, it would have been in Bitcoin Core by now. Like, Taproot got in with, no issues, right? But Segwit got in with no issues. I mean, not from within, right? But CTV, because I'm Jeremy Rubin, I'm not Peter Wooler, it can't get in. This is how these people feel victimized and excluded from the group, and they feel like they're not being judged on the quality of what they have written. They're being judged on who they are. That other heuristics are being used by the developers, right? So when Bitcoiners that aren't developers tell me, we'll judge you based on the code you write, we'll judge the code based on the code, not the author. I'm like, you're not even a developer, and the actual developers don't do that. Do you want a case in point? Greg Maxwell saying, CTV will never get in while Jeremy Rubin is its main champion. Someone else needs to push this thing, otherwise it's never getting in Bitcoin. Is there any technical merit behind that argument? No, it's just based on personal dislikes and social heuristics, just like everything is, because that's how fucking life actually works. So that's how Bitcoin is working at the moment too. It's all politics. There's very little technical debate to be had. There's these crappy little silos. I'm in favor of this whole concept of UTXO sharing and what covenants can bring us. I've obviously been curious about that for ages. I find it incredibly difficult to reason about the opcodes that need to be merged into Bitcoin to allow some of them. But I'm an anti-spam guy, which means I got dumped in this silo that's now at war with the Covenants promoters. A bunch of people made all their avatars have sandwiches to support Jeremy Rubin, and they all made avatars using the Rubin sandwich as their head. And suddenly I'm opposed to these guys on every single issue, even though, like, 8 or 9 months ago, I was sitting here trying to figure out how we could make a UASF for adding CTV. Like, I'm not against covenants, but I'm seeing again, I have to resort to social heuristics. Every single person pushing them seems to be trashing any effort to make the spam filters work properly inside Bitcoin Core, as are Bitcoin Core themselves. So I'm saying we've broken some stuff. You've maliciously modified the documentation to try and backwards rationalize and shoehorn in unintended behavior as being intended, and you're now trying to add a bunch of opcodes to Bitcoin, are you? No, it doesn't seem like the appropriate environment to be doing that in. I don't have any confidence about us being able to make good in a scenario where something goes wrong, which it inevitably will. So that's my brain dump for the moment. It's a complicated bunch of stuff. I think the idea that we can just abandon politics and live in a utopia where everyone is judged by the quality of the code they anonymously submit to Bitcoin it's just never gonna work. That's not like some of the clout Luke has is why some of the things he pushed for ended up happening and why we are in as good a state as we are today. Case in point was SegWit activation, UASF, BIP 148. BIP 148. I don't even remember. It's been a long day. Whatever it was that was the user-activated soft fork client for SegWit was laughed out by Core and dismissed and was basically dead. It was a few of us in a Slack group, like someone was teaching me how to use Linux to compile my own Bitcoin node that would start rejecting blocks on August the 1st or 2017. I didn't know any of this stuff. And then Luke wrote a Reddit post saying, this is fucking happening, by the way, and you all need to switch. And then suddenly that was it. A few months later, you have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of mining equipment all acquiesce to the demands made by that tiny little clique. And it was because of Luke, and it was because of his political clout and his reputation that he'd built up over years. And did anyone running BIP 148 code actually review what the code said? Probably not. I know I didn't, because I still didn't understand C++, right? So let's just stop kidding ourselves. Let's stop pretending we live in a meritocracy, even in the context of Bitcoin. We just don't. Like, yes, you must be a competent C++ developer. If you don't actually know how to write code, it's not going in Bitcoin Core. But are you malicious with it? Do you have ulterior motives? The motive that kills me is the one where get your opcode in Bitcoin, and then what a reputational win for you. You'll be able to speak at conferences forever. You'll be able to stay in nicest hotels. You'll be able to get hired as a developer anywhere. Is it what's best for Bitcoin? Do you have the integrity as a person to say, actually, no, this might create some vulnerabilities. It's probably best not to do it. Do you have the integrity to do that? Like to sacrifice a potential lucrative career for Bitcoin's benefit when it's maybe not that big of a problem? I'll just forget about it. It'll be fine. No one's going to do that. Like, we'll just leave bare multisig wide open, right? We'll leave that on by default. No one's going to use that to spam the chain and bloat the UTXO set. I don't even want to get into that. Like, bare multisig, the pull request to turn that off by default years ago I think it was just like 3 people, like Luke, as usual, and Jeff Garzik, I think at the time, I think it was him just saying, we need to turn this off. No one's using it, and it's a vector for spamming the chain. And all the other devs were like, just leave it, it's fine. Then it got used to spam the chain in 2023, and then, the reaction then was, hi, can we reopen this pull request and turn this fucking thing off now? And it still didn't get turned off, despite the fact that no one actually does multisig that way. It's not being used for its intended purpose. It's just an exploit. Can we just turn the thing off as a default mempool policy? We're not even saying kill it at the consensus level. If you really want to, go ahead. But can we at least make the default behavior of nodes be something that is conducive to people wanting to run them? Because nodes don't want to relay around arbitrary data and spam. It's not what they're here for. It's an unpaid cloud storage thing. Go and watch my last rant or the video before, or, like not the one with Jason, but the one before that. I think is one where I start going on about all the spam issues and all that. The spam is basically what's highlighted all the rot for me. I was prepared to watch as things sort of became a bit fruity, if you want, inside the Bitcoin Core GitHub. But then the minute the spam thing happened and there was no incentive to fix it, aside from Luke and a couple of other people that I'm hesitant to mention, and watching those people get sidelined and elbowed out and then continue to have any funding, afforded to them while people write hit pieces on them like Harding, I just find it appalling. I really do. And yes, I find it somewhat dismaying. I guess I need to make a habit of ending my videos as soon as I can, as well as saying, don't sell your Bitcoin, it will be fine. There is nothing better. But yeah, just stop with the freaking naivety, people. Like, I really don't want to hear that we are in a meritocracy, because we're just not. It's practically DEI at this point. Like, I'm just going to come out and say it. Like, the Queen of Core, Gloria, is freaking useless and has been artificially put there because of bullshit DEI reasons, along with some sort of meeting some criteria of base level competence. But, I haven't seen anything. I've only seen actions from her that make me go, this is not good. Example is closing pull requests. I mean, A. Chow was kind of guilty of that as well. Closing them or locking them down when they become contentious, when it's just obvious that it's just attackers trying to, create problems where there aren't any. I mean, it's some of it's legitimate disagreement. Some of it is just obvious maliciousness and what's the word for this? Artificial controversy that's being brought about by people enjoying themselves, making a lot of money in the short term, and objectively harming Bitcoin in manifest ways, like writing off an entire class of hardware that can now no longer sync the blockchain. That's manifestly a problem, and it comes as a result of an obvious bug and oversight, which is trying, as I said, to get shoehorned in to be made normal after the fact. It's a rough situation. It's frustrating to watch, and I don't like knee-jerk responses to it. I don't like people like Bruce randomly insulting people because of their politics and then dismissing everything they write as bullshit as a result. I basically say, yeah, actually I agree with that, do that, but you need to hold off judgment until you see one piece of evidence confirming your conjecture. I saw that piece of evidence. It was not the block size war. It was the reaction to spam. And now I'm basically thinking it was always inevitable, but Core was at some point, ever since the unholy thing was created by Gavin Andresen itself, before that there was no Bitcoin Core, it was always going to become co-opted at some point, whether organically or at the behest of the CIA or something like that. It was always going to become the enemy of Bitcoin. And at this point, it was never going to just be a day and night thing. It was just going to be a boiling frog thing. And at this point, I'm saying the water's definitely boiling. The software, the reference implementation is not in good hands. And we need to sort it out. And sorry for not ending on a solution, but I'm just trying to describe the problem. I'm doing my best. I don't think we're doomed. I think we will get on a good path sooner or later because the right people are still around and they're still working. It's just, I don't want to pretend they're not being elbowed out due to politics when we're supposed to live, and that we live in this meritocracy, because we just don't. I'll end it there. Thanks for watching.